I just actually had a couple of questions, but I just wanted to start by saying that I, for one, think that it is extremely important that we do everything we can to preserve jobs anywhere in the state, and I don't think any of us take lightly the possibility of anybody losing their jobs. But would you agree that anything that's done which would adversely impact jobs in other areas is not a good thing, and specifically if the costs associated with the ZECs causes significant increases in expenses for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, for example, that means either that they cut back on services or they have to seek other taxpayer money to replace it. And when the MTA cuts back on services, that has an adverse impact on jobs. I mean, it's been said over and over again, but it's the truth. The trains and buses in New York City and the metropolitan area are really the lifeblood of the economy, and if people cannot get to and from their jobs, assuming they are fortunate enough to have jobs, then that really has a significant effect on the number of people who have jobs. So when it's discussed that the cost of doing this will be disproportionately paid by people in other areas of the state besides where the plants are, we're also talking about jobs, and everybody wants their jobs, whether it's in Oswego or any place else around the state. So add a question mark to that, and would you agree that this does have an impact on jobs downstate?
I would not only agree, but I would emphasize that the impact would even be greater without the ZEC program implementation. I just gave you the example. If we're going to replace nuclear power with the RECs, and by comparison, the ZEC, about $17.48 in that first tranche that we've heard. The REC calculation for renewable energy is $21.16, nearly $4 more. And there's an alternative payment capacity, or an alternative payment that's even higher than that, $23 plus. So the expense to all ratepayers, and that's why all New Yorkers should be concerned with this. This is not just an upstate issue. This is a New York State issue. The ZEC program will actually, over time, help to not only stabilize the impact on our environment, but it will, if we're using those two figures as comparisons, it will actually save money. The alternative, and I'm all in favor of renewables. I think there should be a day, and there will be a day when we get there, but to cut off nuclear power at the kneecaps right now and somehow think that magically our lights are going to turn on and the costs are actually going to be less is pure fallacy. It's irresponsible to think that way.
Okay, well, I'm in favor of jobs, you're in favor of renewables, so we're both wonderful.
I think we can have both.
However, it's hard for me to understand how we can make decisions on important issues involving huge amounts of money without having all the information before us. And up until now, I have not seen all the information that I think we, as representatives and the public in general, should expect and have a right to know, because some people operate in secrecy and without transparency, and that's why it's particularly unfortunate that the Public Service Commission chose not to be represented here today. I know they may have not been given huge amounts of notice, but I'm sure they're an office of more than one person. I know if something very important is brought to my attention within 24 hours of when an event takes place, I make it my business to be there, and it's just actually a little shocking that the PSC and other state agencies chose not to, but I'm sure we'll afford them the opportunity to disclose information that we should have had in the first place.
Well, and I think, if I could, Mr. Chairman, you know, and I have complete respect for the legislative process. I think we do tend in government, and we all have our own layers of government, but we tend to look at things in a bubble, right? We have our own atmosphere and surroundings, an environment that we concentrate on. But to say that this process is shrouded in secrecy, again, is not correct. The town of Scriba has been intimately involved in this process, as have been hundreds, if not thousands, of other stakeholders across the state, and particularly in upstate New York. In November of 2015, Fitzpatrick announced its closure. In December of that same year, the governor announced the need to amend the Clean Energy Standard to include nuclear. By January, the Public Service Commission and the Department and its department issued a white paper that laid out the various schemes, the RECs and the ZECs, added the nuclear component. From February through July, there were a series of public hearings we've heard about. There is a significant public record. It may not necessarily be a legislative record, and again, I respect that. But anyone that wanted to get involved in this process had ample opportunity to do that, and the record is very full with individuals who did that.
With all due respect, I'm involved with this process. I'm chairing a hearing today, and yet I can't question the Public Service Commission because they chose not to be here. When I ask Exelon questions, the people who were sent here, while very knowledgeable, weren't prepared for some of the issues that we raised. So it's really not quite as open as you would say. And I would just mention this. The PSC concealed from the general public the basis for determining how much money was needed to keep the owners of the nuclear reactors from closing their plants. And they did this by sealing the record of the case proceedings on the cost of the plants, only allowing those parties who signed confidentiality agreements to testify. So that, to me, is not transparency. And I'm not arguing with you over whether we should keep the plants open or closed or anything like that. We just, I, for one, just want information so we can act intelligently and do the right thing. But if things are kept a secret, you can't really do that.